Vou aproveitar aqui só para fazer teste. Wellington,
Good
você consegue?
afternoon. I will do a test. Wellington, can you hear us? Are you here with us already? Do you have your camera open? We are already in the room. Oh, I can see you. Let me see if we can see you here.
Olha só.
Ó, o negócio aí tá chique, viu?
Oh, wow.
Aí, nós estamos com alguns grupos que estão já se deslocando para cá. Aí, fazendo só o teste, mas dá para a gente ver aqui perfeitamente.
We can see we're doing the test, but we can see perfect.
Eu já passo a palavra para o Ednei, para ele.
I will pass the floor to Ednei.
Beleza, Rodrigo. Obrigado, viu?
Thank you, Rodrigo.
Tá bem, eu que agradeço.
Thank you so much.
Pessoal, eu queria só fazer uma rápida
I
introdução.
want to do a quick introduction and to give some tolerance.
Quase aqui já.
We have some people who are almost here. Our event started on Monday. We were at the hotel, the Quality Hotel. We came here to Casino, the House of Innovation. You can access the program on the website. We also have a print version. It's always a little less updated because on the website we can keep it more updated. On the website in Portuguese. We don't have it in English. But you can see all the themes and all the discussions that have happened. We have a very diverse group. Each day of event is different. Some people were following since the beginning, some partially, others came only in the morning, the others just for the afternoon. It's a very heterogeneous group and has these characteristics. We have common that our team is present in everything. We're taking notes. And why am I saying that? Because our intention, this is not just the results of each event, but every consideration somehow contributes for what Avivente does every year, which is the elaboration of a big report that is sent to the presidency of G20. So those discussions will inform this process of construction. It's not that we are going to live here tomorrow with a declaration, but all of that will be part of the reflections that will lead to the elaboration of this report. Then we get a permanent registration, and we want this to impact G20. We want to have a say on on what the countries are reflecting. We have a great theme for our event: environment, development. Each activity that was developed was done with institutional support or with a moderator that has done some sort of mobilization. We had this morning the panel that was organized by Yuri and by Amazonizar. After the coffee break at 4, we are going to have a panel organized by the Initiative of Tropical Forests, and we have a panel organized by the Amazon Future Generation and the role of religions. And before passing the floor to Ednei and the panelists, I had said, Saletti, that it would be a moment, very brief, that unlike the morning, we don't have a space for the activity. We have a panel in the sequence. So, who is going to speak? Luciana? Good afternoon, everyone.
Fatumeia de Solar,
I am Babalaô Ifatume de Solá.
filho do Olu e Fatoki,
I am a son of Imo Fatoki and the grandchild of Areajaí,
é da ramificação nigeriana.
from the branch of Nigeria.
Dentro da questão ambiental,
As a terreiro, today in the environmental issue, we are intrinsically connected.
toda a questão ambiental, ela promove a nossa cultura religiosa.
All of the environmental promotes our religious culture. We seek for the most simple herb to the fiercest animal, means for survival, for subsistency, for existing in our religion.
Nós estamos
Today, we
preocupados
are
com toda a questão ambiental. Por que que nós estamos preocupados com a questão ambiental?
with the environmental issues. We are a part of it.
É uma parte de nós que se degrada cada vez que
This is a part of us that will degrade every time
eram
we have a river
catalogados.
that is
Hoje não temos
harassed.
mais. Eu
We
lembro,
had clean rivers. We don't have
diz um ditado,
that anymore.
ditado africano que o rio que esquece a sua
There is an
corrente é
African
assoreado.
saying that says that
E
a river that forget its roots will die silted.
o nome de Ponta
There was
da Bolívia,
a bay that was called Bolivian Bridge
a barreira,
because it's near
poucos metros do lixão.
Bolivia,
E
and
hoje
it's
você
near
por lá é triste ver
it's near
esse tipo de
a dumpster, a landfill.
Existem muitas casas,
So
muitos
now
terreiros
we
que
have a
são
lot
para
of
o reaproveitamento
terreiros, a lot of shrines
sabão,
working, making soap with
para fazer a limpeza
used oil
das panos, enfim.
to clean
Então,
homes.
nós temos um papel fundamental quanto a
We
isso.
have
Mas como eu estava comentando com
an environmental role,
nós esbarramos em várias problemáticas aonde
but we are
não
stepping
só fazer
on a lot of problems.
de resíduo,
We should not collect only residues as it needs to be.
façam a destinação desses
We
resíduos
have trucks, we don't have trucks
para onde
to
os
do
caminhões hoje
the
passam
collection
gasto de
accordingly. We don't have a place
Então,
to
políticas
take those things.
públicas
So we need
para
public
essa
policies
situação,
for this sort of situation.
isso enfraquece
Would need everyone.
momento que
This is weakening us.
resultado
From the moment we don't have a result,
fazer a minha coleta seletiva.
it's not just
Eu,
doing
a máxima
collecting recycle,
jogada e descartada de qualquer forma.
because
Nós
the majority of it is being discarded
a
incorrectly. We
importância
teach our children the importance of the herbs, the air,
para que nossa mente que
of a
24 horas
place that has worked for 24/7 can have some peace.
temos esses próprios jovens.
And we are seeing
Então,
those people from the youth
como líderes e
being
sacerdotes,
harassed by the world.
ensinar o caminho
We are trying to teach
ensinar o caminho
the path of ecology, the path that our ancestors sent us,
coisas
the way they put all things
consigamos
so
ser
we could
melhores.
be better
Então,
people.
assim, o papel dos terreiros é fundamental.
So the shrines, they are fundamental.
Se procura na escola,
When you don't need it,
se procura nos centros.
when you don't need it at home, you seek for it at school. When you don't have it at school, you look for it in religions.
Casas de apoio,
Terreiros, homes of support,
nomenclatura independe.
places of praying, churches, it doesn't matter the name.
E o caminho
It's important the way of that
com verdade é
place and who is
mudar.
doing that, who is ministering that as the truth, and this person has the responsibility of changing lives. So the means of survival for the human being, we have a fundamental role on that.
Esbarramos em políticas públicas que ainda
We step on public policies that must be improved,
olhadas individualmente.
must be worked individually, because each place is a reality.
É uma realidade.
Each situation is a situation.
Por trás
A,
de beco,
a terreiro that is
em locais de risco, muitas vezes
on a stair, on a place of risk,
não temos uma efetivação
as we don't have an effective
para
to
compensar
orient,
para esse entendimento,
to send that to an understanding, to a better place, a better way of understanding.
nós estamos unidos junto com a Yuri e todas
We are connected now with this environmental movement,
estamos justamente
so we don't lose what is keeping us alive.
dando a toada não mate a mata. A Virgem Verde
And don't kill,
merece consideração.
do not kill the woods. The green virgin always needs consideration. It's crucial to know that black and yellow don't mix. I'm Mateus Amazonia. I'm a young leadership from the community, from the territories, from the east part of Manaus, suffering a lot of degradation. It didn't have any city planning, so we suffer from that. And inside the articulation of the environmental movements in the Amazon, that is composed by a lot of representations, Tirulipa, Cindas, Penduras, and people who are integrally fighting for human rights, religious entities, communities, social organizations from the civil society. And as we all have expressed, we have concerned with the environment, with the indigenous peoples, originary people, and the communion of religion and the importance and the contributions of traditions for that. I want to bring a fight and an invitation to defend the encounter of the waters. This is a symbol of a lot of communities. The waters of these rivers, they find their path and they meet here in Manaus. And this is a sanctuary. It is a natural show, and it represents a lot of ancestry, cultures, and traditions. It is where waters of distinct colors meet without mixing for kilometers. This is one of the world wonders. It's a symbol of resilience that inspire energy of peoples and communities and religions that inhabit the Amazon. Tiago de Mello, a poet, a defender of the Amazon that led this movement and fought for it until his last days, fighting so this cultural heritage could be protected and could be prevented from environmental destruction, made it famous worldwide, claiming for acknowledgement of this unique treasure of humanity. That is why I'm begging those religious leaderships to co-create a coalition to transform the encounter of waters, place of encountering of the many peoples of the Amazon, present on all religions that inhabit this huge garden, and to propose the 20 biggest potencies in the world, making it fundamental for those presidents to be committed to this cause that is so needed for the Amazon, investing in resources to mobilize the communities of all the Amazon territory, and to mobilize political forces to ensure that they are acknowledged as the cultural heritage of Brazil and humanity by UNESCO. This acknowledgement can contribute for the protection, environmental and all protections, will promote great pride and joy of the community in events that already happen in this movement. As global citizens, and going towards the last part of my presentation, it is our responsibility to defend the legacy for the future generations that are yet to come. The encounter of waters is a gift of nature, is a point of universal connection, and it's a testimony of our capacity of coexisting in harmony with the environment. We beg the leaders to act with commitment and fraternity, uniting to a collective effort to preserve this cultural heritage and Amazon, conversion in strengths and religions, leaderships, speaking to these and all nations from the Amazon to the world. May this encounter of waters being a symbol of convergency and the inspiration for everyone. And may you promote the will of the divine spark so that peace and justice can reign in all peoples and governments with the blessings of the God Tupan, Oxalá, from all the religions that here are found and converging to transform the world in a better place. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for those interventions, and we still have some continuation on that. And I would like to call Ednei, please. Ednei Correia. We have the panelists, Wellington Pereira da Silva, that will be virtually with us. Methodist pastor, director of the NGO of Humanitarian Help and Law, and he's a master by UNPB. Maria, also with qualification, Maria do Perpétuo Socorro Rodrigues, a professor from the Federal University of the Amazon, connected to the PhD program of social service. Thank you so much, Professor. Adenilza Vieira, socioambientalist from the Apurinã Pupucari ethnic, with a degree in theology and philosophy, part of the GTA Amazon Working Group, part of many civil society associations, part of the Forum of Social Movements, and with great actuation in sustainability, social and environmental sustainability. So I'd like to pass the floor to you, Ednei. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to everyone present. Thank you, Rodrigo, for the word. It is a great satisfaction to be here today in this event, parallel to G20, to the forum. This is of extreme importance. Thank you for this morning, with all the present authorities, everybody that contributed in a great way to tackle the situations with the environment, with this promotion of sustainability and the religious engagement. We had some accordances with our panelists. We know each other from some situations. I won't present them because Rodrigo has sent some situations and we don't want to be at risk of doing something that they contribute. I want to talk about the worldly view. I'm a father. I'm a social assistant. I am now a supervisor of projects. And my NGO has a great actuation, acting in over 100 countries. Work with humanitarian help, advocacy, always prioritizing to protect children and teenagers and working with families. And we hope to have support of these families, acting in diverse fronts and actuations. This is an important work. It is important for us to be in this discourse. I don't want to take long so we don't go over time. I will go to Socorro Chaves. She will do her presentation. Sorry, Socorro. I want to talk to Pastor Wellington. Can I see him, Rodrigo? Is there a way for me to see him? Can you hear me? I can see you. Welcome, Pastor. Good afternoon. We understand the internet is not good. He has another appointment, and afterwards we're gonna follow with who is present. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Nate, thank you so much for conducting this debate. I want to salute Rodrigo. Thank you for your invitation and for the coordination of this event. Also salute my friend Sila Mesquita, a partner of all moments with the environment through the Amazon region where she's located. Also, Professor Socorro, uh, a tireless fighter of the environment of the Federal University of Amazonas. I don't know if Thais is there to increase our event with the presence of a member of the youth fighting for children's rights in the perspective of climate change. It is important to have this look of children because our panel is exactly that. Why do we need to protect the Amazon? Why do we need to fight for it being preserved? Thinking about our preservation and the future generations and our children's and teenagers and that are our friends that are here today and that deserve a better world. I don't want to take too long. I know working through Zoom, the quality is not good enough. I will remove my video, but I will be listening to you afterwards. And I want to first thank the opportunity and to wish you all a good rest of event.
Perfeito, obrigado pela fala, Pastor Wellington. Quero convidar aqui
Thank you so much for what you're saying, Pastor Wellington. I want to invite as well
essa jovem aí, essa
Thais. Thais, you're so young, you're a teenager.
Não, vou fazer a apresentação dela, que eu já acordei, eles vão se apresentar depois.
I said they're going to introduce themselves and they're going to talk about themselves and do their own presentation.
Nossa tarde também, tá bom? Sem mais delongas.
And to enlighten our afternoon as well. And I will pass the floor to Professor Chaves.
Firstly, I want to greet everybody who's here, every leader. I want to manifest my gratitude for people who are here almost 30 years later. I'm meeting a friend, an activist friend, and making new friends. So I am thrilled for being here, see so many people together. I had a presentation and then I abandoned because I was told I was supposed to tell about my experience. So I gotta tell you that I am from Afro-Indigenous descendant. I'm the first of my family, a family that still has many members in the Curus River in Beruri. So I was the first one who was born here in the city. My mother came here. I cannot tell my mom's story, involves a lot of suffering. And we were living in that floating city that was before the city of Manaus. So by 6 years old, I went through the process of expulsion of the area because we were making that area dirty. So we went to live by a creek. And I want a place here that I'm happy to be here because since I am someone who used to live by the riverside, I have a tradition of a grandfather who was a slave, a grandmother, and a great grandmother who were indigenous. I think it's important for me to be here talking to you due to the journey that God blessed me with. So I want to be thankful for all of you, and we should contribute so that more people in our region have the opportunity to attend university, to have a master's degree, a doctorate degree. I have 10 areas of formation in science. So for me, I cannot not tell this story. And my experience as a professor, I have 33 years as an experience. I am retired, but I still work with postdoctorate and PhD. But I'd like to tell you that this experience of teaching has always been fighting for the recognition of the traditional people in our region. So in this work, I was able, from working in Paris, we came up with a methodology to work with traditional people in our region. So there's a methodology that respects and won't. It doesn't work with hierarchy. There's no hierarchy between the academic science and the science of the traditional people. And from that, I created two research groups. One of them is the Center of Energetical Development in the state of Amazon, and the other one, which is the interdisciplinary group for development of social sciences in Amazonia. We have worked in more than 1,000 communities in 3 countries, and I guarantee that 64 municipalities where we work, building more than 150 social technologies, is still a minor drop before the lack of access to public policies that these populations face here in the region. So we are a research interdisciplinary group. We have people from several areas, but most part is from the social area because my major is social work. My master's and everything is related to social service. So we are an extension program. We're not a program. We're one of the access programs from the Federal University. And we work with research, with traditional people, extractivists, fishermen, maroons, but we also work with the regional people, and we have research about environmental disasters. We already started something in Rio Grande do Sul. We have been there for a year and a half, and we also work in partnership. All our work, I believe that's why I was called for the future generations and the issue of relation, because all of our work is in partnership with churches. All the churches, we don't segregate churches. We have our interreligious team. Our work in every community is interreligious. We work in all these places and we develop works with churches. They are our great partners wherever we are. Besides having here in the state of Amazonas a session of the movement Renew Our World in Amazonas, which is an international movement that works with churches, religions. It's an interreligious project too. And I coordinate this group. It's the biggest in Brazil. And then I'd like to tell you that one of the most important things that we've been working with the churches is the issue related to responsibility for present, current, and future generations. So our job is try to get to know our research, get to know our reality, to work the dynamics of the internal relations between groups, and we have already been successful in some areas, in some projects. We made progress, and we took two national conferences bringing the contribution of these people. So for us, it's really important to fight for having a new politics scenario for future generations. And I heard here, I don't know if it was you who was, someone talked about Tiago de Mello, right? So I'm gonna quote him when he was still alive. We were in Cube presenting the works we have here. And part of his poetry says that those who want what they want and where to reach, they find a way to walk. I need to say that from the trajectory that I have, my students with their stories and students who are part of areas who suffer, they were expelled. Also, they have citizenship and access to territory, and say that those who know what they want, they don't find the way, but they build the way. This is what we're doing here. So before that, and before the limitation of my time, I'd like to present to some of the materials that we produce. It's just a small part because we have this trajectory, and one of the things that we did in the communities was to produce didactic materials so that we could have a partnership with church and develop these materials. And I'd like to see if it's possible to put the presentation I brought here. In this partnership, we developed social educative actions based in the traditional local practices. And then we train monitors in the communities. And from the understanding of that reality, we assemble material to work with them. So we have a social educational work based in principles of sustainability. The name of this type of material is Laboratory for Experience, the Living Labs. We are part of living labs that work internationally. So we have worked with recycled material, we have workshops for corporal expression, dance, everything built from the expression of the local culture. And something else that is generated from that are the booklets that we have to be used in the schools, because we realized that a good portion of the material they use in the schools are not adequate to talk about the reality, the schools children recognizing themselves to have a social educational process. So these booklets you're seeing, each one of them is one. Care with the nature. These are guidelines with recycled material. And the care with the creation of God. It's supposed to be an educational work in the religious way and for kids. And this care with the nature has 20 educational games that can be done by any people. There's no the need of expensive material. We have these two first booklets we are re-editing now, and it's necessary for the schools to use. The other one is linked to the issues related to environment, and they participated. Kids are involved in drawing. We have another one, which is this creating children and adolescents taking care of the creations of God. We have all plantation in schools. They have the plantings for kids at school to guarantee they have food safety. And together with the community, they have this vegetable garden. And this other one is the lady vegetable garden. We have the partnership with IFA. And we have these others here when we learn good practices to take care of nature. And we have as a reference, and you see that there's a cross. We have Genesis as a reference, so we have kids interpreting and we are working with them. And there's another booklet, maybe you won't see. It's the Christian Church and Climate Justice, the issue of water, and we also have in the sense of our work by the recognition of the responsibility and the leaderships and the churches. Many times scientists and professionals think about all the problems that can be worked everywhere in the world, but they forget we are in the Amazon. We need specific care because the students like to talk about a supplement that those who have been given much, they will have to return much. So our commitment with other peoples to access to health and education, this is really needed right now. Also for the expansion of social protection with strategies to ban violences, all types of violences, because all the data that we have, the greatest violence is sexual violence with kids. We have this in the Amazon region. We've been working with several areas in the human and social rights of these kids and adolescents, of teenagers. It's an essential instrument to have development with sustainability. Then we involve all the areas, education, work, health. We think of the refugees in the gender issue, the racial ethnic issue. And in this sense, we believe that for an effective fight for the death of the future, we need to make sure that we have a childhood that is happy. Thank you for this opportunity. And children are not mothers.
Obrigado, professora. Obrigado pela
Thank you,
exposição.
Professor. Thank you
Vou
for your
passar agora para a professora.
presentation. Now we're going to give the
Você,
floor
Sila.
to Sila.
Oi,
Hi,
eu quero saudar, aí a plenária
I want to
da
greet
Clarice, dessa
everyone in
grande
the name of
mulheres guerreira,
Clarissa and Salete, those
agradecer,
warrior fighter women.
o pastor Wellington
I
pelo
want
convite,
to thank Pastor
de
Elton
ter
for the
pensado, de
invitation,
trazer, a nossa
thinking and
apresentação
bringing our
como
presentation
grupo de trabalho amazônico para esse debate.
as an
Meu lugar
Amazonian
de fala
part with that.
é do município de Iranduba, da
I come
comunidade
from the
Iranduba.
Iranduba
A minha
municipality.
ancestralidade é do Rio Purus, do município de
I
Lábrea,
come from the
município
Labra
do povo Apurina.
municipality. That's why I'm from the Apurina people.
E a minha formação, ela vem, a partir dos meus 14 anos,
And
quando eu
I was
comecei
trained
a
when I was
participar,
14 and I
das
started
comunidades, das
attending
pastorais sociais,
the
ou seja, da
community,
pastoral catequética, da pastoral dos educadores,
the
das comunidades
groups,
eclesial de
youth
base.
groups,
Então, eu venho a partir,
and I
dessa
come
realidade, a
from
partir
this
dessa
reality. I come
convivência,
from
dessa
this
relação,
co-living and this
com a
relationship
natureza. Eu também
with
sou fruto,
nature. I'm
dessa
also fruit
expulsão, da
of this
comunidade, do
expelling from the
sentido do Lago do
community
Limão, na década de
in the
60, de
Lago
70,
do
a gente
Limão
só
in the
tinha até a quarta
60s and
série.
70s. We
Então, a
would
gente
study only
é
until fourth
obrigado a
year
sair, da
elemental
nossa
school, so we were
comunidade,
forced to leave
e
our
vir para a
communities
cidade
and we would
para
come to the
estudar.
cities to
Então, eu também
study.
sou, dessa dessa consequência, aonde a gente
And
foi
there's this consequence
expulso no sentido
when we were
de vir à
expelled in the
capital,
sense of coming
chegar
to the
aqui muitas das
capital,
vezes,
and when we have here
morar nas palafitas,
and
nas
we would live
periferias,
in an
trabalhar nas casas
outskirts,
de família,
working as maids in the houses of
sustentar o seu
families
dia a dia.
to
Mas isso
bring
traz um
home
lado
our money.
positivo,
But
que
that
essa
has
minha
our
relação
positive side,
com a
this
mãe natureza,
relationship
essa
with Mother
preocupação
Nature,
de estar,
this
sempre em
concern to be pro-life, this strengthened us in the sense of embracing this cause and taking a side and saying, what am I doing here on this planet? What am I doing here in this life? And then from that, we started to be activists in this fight in a sense that we can defend the rights of peoples. Today, I am a theologist, I'm a philosopher, I am a president of the GTA network that was born in 1992. And when we had Eco 92, and then the first environmental movement, when the GTR network was born, we were here in Manaus. Those who know Maromba, we were in the meeting of the Livings by the Riverside in the Pastoral da Terra, where I was an activist for 16 years. We started to work to defending the lakes because we understood that defending the lakes were not the source of drinking water, but also the source of fish, the road, the river, the source of food safety. It's everything for the traditional and the indigenous people. So from this experience of CPT, we started having this activism, and we have the GTR network being born in the 9 states of the Brazilian Amazon. We have over 400 institutions that are affiliated with this network. We have several topics: defense of territory, the gender, social justice, climate justice, women, youth, and other topics as just like the energetic transition. How to defend life where territories are threatened. How can we make sure we have communities and peoples alive where great projects arrive without respecting the reality of those communities that exist there? How to defend life where governments arrive and they don't ask, they just come in and install themselves. So what do we want? And this debate of G20, this interreligious forum, brings us the need to exercise again the dialogue for the construction for life, for the right to territories, in defending the food safety, in defending the right of women, of children, of teenagers. How can we think this form of a structural politics if we don't respect the territory where we are? We're talking about a place which is Amazon. We don't want to be better or worse. We have a responsibility, huge responsibility, not only the Amazonian. We have a huge responsibility to take care of Mother Nature because we need Mother Nature, and she teaches us that a relative, an elderly, said, Mother Nature is starting to get mad at us. She's starting to revolt. So what happened in the state of Rio Grande do Sul and what happened last year in the Amazon, especially here, it's announced that we're going to have something worse than last year. Our drought is going to be worse. We actually need to have a responsible politics that may assure this social justice, this climate justice, this environmental justice, because the
são as
most
comunidades
affected
tradicionais,
people are
são
the
as comunidades
traditional
ribeirinhas, são os
communities,
povos
the
indígenas.
communities
E a
by the
Amazônia
riverside
é
and the
nossa.
indigenous people.
Se
And
ela é nossa, a nossa
Amazon
casa
belongs
comum,
to
nós
us,
precisamos
our common
cuidá-la.
house. We
Se
need to
nós não
take care of it.
cuidarmos, a
If we don't
partir
take care
da
of it
nossa crença, a
from
partir
our
do nosso
belief,
lugar,
from
porque
our
eu
place,
vejo que nós não temos,
I
nós aqui
see
não
that
estamos discutindo
here we're
a
not
partir do meu credo,
discussing
a partir da
what
minha
beliefs.
religião. Nós
We're not
estamos
discussing
discutindo a
religions.
nossa casa
We're
comum.
discussing our
E
common
essa casa
house.
comum, ela
And this
precisa
common
desse diálogo,
house
ela
needs
precisa
this
dessa
dialogue,
conexão, ela
this
precisa dessa
connection,
interação para
this
que junto
interaction, so that together
possamos salvar a
we can
humanidade.
save
E a humanidade,
humanity.
ela
And
depende de
humanity
cada gesto
depends
de cada um
on
de
each
nós.
gesture
E
from
aí não é a
each one
Sila,
of us.
aí não é a
And it's not
Socorro, aí não é
Sila,
o
it's not
João, aí
Socorro,
somos
it's not
nós.
João, it's
Temos a
us.
responsabilidade
We
de
have the
fazer essa
responsibility
construção. E essa
to build
construção,
this,
as futuras
and
gerações,
this
ela vem
construction
pela
for future
educação.
generations come through
Nós precisamos de
education.
uma educação
We
diferenciada.
need a
Nós
different
precisamos de uma
education.
educação
We
que
need
olhe para a
an education that
realidade
will take
dos
care
territórios.
at the
Nós
reality
precisamos
of
de uma educação
territories.
para uma
We
juventude que
need an
seja, de
education
fato,
for
uma educação a partir
children
daquele território,
that
a
is
partir
an
daquela
education
língua, a partir
from
daquele
that
idioma, a partir
territory,
daquela
from
cultura.
that language, from
Essa
that
é
culture.
uma é
This
uma é
is
uma
one
é uma proposta que nós precisamos
of the
ter. Nós
suggestions that we
precisamos
should
garantir
have.
uma
We
política
should make
de
sure that we're going to
sustentabilidade,
have a
uma
politics
política de
for
conservação.
sustainability
Nós
and
precisamos ter, e a
conservation.
Socorro
We
falou
need
muito
to
bem,
have, and
a
Socorro
agricultura
mentioned very
sustentável,
well about
a
that, the
agroecologia,
sustainable
é um dos nossos
agriculture,
caminhos, né? Os nossos
ecology is one
quintais
of
é um
our
dos nossos caminhos.
ways.
O
Our yard is one
reflorestamento,
of our
se
ways.
cada um de nós, todo mundo
Reforesting,
que
if
viaja de avião, um
everybody
dia
who
desse eu fui fazer os
travels
cálculos,
by
eu
plane,
estou
and the
devendo
other
mudar, já
day
plantei muito, mas estou
I
devendo
did the
mudar.
math and I
Eu preciso
and I
cada
owe
um
plenty
plantar
many plants, so
aquilo
all of us should plant
que,
what
que consome. Eu acho que
we
o papel da
consume.
religião
So the
nesse
role
sentido é
of
desempenhar,
religion in this
né,
sense
o papel vital
is
na
to
proteção da
have the
Amazônia,
vital role in
né,
the
na educação
protection
das
of
futuras
Amazon and in
gerações,
the
trazendo
education of future
valores,
generations,
tradições
bringing
religiosas, promovendo
values,
o respeito pela natureza.
traditions, and
Pode ser
promoting
a
the respect
base
for the
para uma
nature. That could
conscientização
be the
ambiental.
basic for an
E eu gostaria de
environmental
encerrar
awareness.
dizendo
And
que
I'd
a
like
mobilização
to
comunitária,
finish
a
saying that the
organização social
community mobilization,
é fundamental
mobilization and
para a
the
gente
social
garantir
organization
essa
is
harmonia, esse
fundamental
diálogo,
for us to make sure we're
desse
going to have
desejo,
this
dessa construção da casa
dialogue
comum.
in
A
this
casa comum, ela é
construction
nossa,
of
mas
the
é
common house. The
preciso
common
cuidar.
house is ours,
E
but
aqui
we
eu
need
quero
to
trazer,
build. And
né, a
here
partir
I want to bring
da criação do GTA,
from the
a
creation
partir
of
dessa inspiração
GTA,
tão grande que foi a
from the
GTA,
inspiration which
a
was the
figura
GTA
do Chico Mendes, né? O Chico
network, the
Mendes foi
person of
um
Chico
companheiro,
Mendes.
foi um
He was a
sindicalista
partner,
que tinha uma
he
visão,
was a person who
né,
had a
tão
vision
brilhante que
that was
ele lá
so
na década de
brilliant
80
that in the
ele já
80s
se preocupava
he
com o dia de hoje,
already
né? E
was
por isso
worried
ele foi
about
assassinado,
today, and
né?
that's why he
Por isso
was
ele foi
murdered.
assassinado.
That's
Nós,
why
o do Encontro de Ribeirinho Socorro,
we,
acho que você também estava
I
lá, que
think
ajudou a
you
gente
were
construir
there
isso.
and
Tinha
you
uma
helped
senhora
us
chamada
build
Dona
this. There
Dica,
was a lady called Dona
uma
Chica,
senhora de 80 anos, lá do município de
an
Barra.
80 years old
Ela ganhou uma vez o
lady,
prêmio
and she
Dom
got
Jorge
won
Máximo.
the Dom Jorge
Ela foi um
Mascio
bispo
Award. He was a
de
bishop
Itacoatiara, um bispo
in
muito
Itacoatiara,
comprometido,
a very
né, na luta
committed
do direito à
bishop in the
vida.
fight
E
for
alguém
the right
perguntou
to
para ela
life.
assim:
And someone asked
Dona
her,
Dica, por que
Dona
que a
Dica,
senhora
why
preserva esse lago?
do you preserve
Aí ela
this
falou assim:
lake?
sabe
And
por que
she
eu estou
said,
preservando esse
do
lago?
you know, do you want to
Porque
know
eu
why
quero
I
que os
preserve
meus
this lake?
filhos,
Because
os
I want
meus
my
netos, os
children, my
meus bisnetos
grandchildren, my great grandchildren
sinta o sabor do
to
pirarucu.
feel the taste of
Que
the
coisa linda.
pirarucu fish.
Uma
That's so
pessoa que tem uma
beautiful.
visão de
A
dizer: eu estou
person who
preservando
has the
as
vision to
futuras
say, I'm
gerações.
preserving
E
for
para
future
concluir,
generations. And to
eu vou
conclude
terminar com a
here,
seguinte
I want to
frase.
finish with
No
this
começo,
sentence.
pensei que eu estivesse
In the
lutando
beginning, I
para
thought
salvar
I was
seringueiras.
fighting to
Depois
fight
pensei que eu
trees.
estava
Then I
lutando
thought I
para
was
salvar a
fighting
floresta amazônica.
to save the
Agora,
Amazon forest. Now
perceba que eu estou lutando
I realize that I'm fighting
pela humanidade.
for
Chico Mendes.
humanity. This was said by Chico
Obrigada.
Mendes. Thank you.
Obrigado, Sila. Obrigado mesmo
Thank you, Sila.
pelas
Thank you very
palavras, né?
much.
Muito emocionante.
Thrilling
E é importante
words.
reconhecer os
And it's
pequenos
important to
trabalhos, as pequenas
recognize the
atitudes,
small
né? É
works, the
interessante
small
que
attitudes. It's
trabalhamos
interesting
e
that
atuamos nos
we
macros,
work
mas é importante
in
reconhecer
the
os
macro
micros.
spaces, but
Alguém
it's
falou
important to
de
recognize
manhã
micro
no painel
spaces. Someone said in
que
the morning in the
alguma
panel
igreja
that
eles
in
proibiram
their
a questão
church they
dos
forbade the
descartáveis.
issue of
Me
the
parece, né, dizer o seguinte, que parece até ser bobagem,
dischargeable.
mas
It
não é.
seems to
Se a
be
gente não
something
cuida hoje,
silly, but it's not.
a
If we
gente vai
don't
tirar
take
para
care
amanhã,
today,
né?
what are we gonna live
Parabéns
for
às
tomorrow?
duas falas, as três falas
Congratulations
iniciais.
for
E agora eu
the
vou
three
deixar
people who
vocês
have
com a
already
Thaís,
shared.
ela vai se
Now
apresentar,
we're gonna call
né, o
Thaisa.
que ela tem
She's gonna
concluído,
present
na
herself.
visão mundial tem
She's gonna say
acompanhado.
what she's been
Thaisa
living.
esteve na COP
She
28,
was in
né, e a gente vai dar
COP28,
seguimento, tá bom?
and then we'll
Obrigado,
move
Thaisa.
forward. So with you, Thais. Hello everyone, my name is Thais. I am an indigenous and I work in the Turura Carioca. I'm 13 years old. I'm activist since I was little. I'm part of the World Vision in the work that they had in Tamarunuru, and I had highlights, and I represented 5 countries of Latin America. Today, I represent not only the municipality, but my state through the vision. They give me the chance to talk in other places. I have a small text and I want to share it with you. The environment has a crucial role in our existence. It provides vital resources for the life of the planet. Sustainable development is an approach that looks for balance, the economical growth with the environmental preservation and the social well-being, making sure that the current needs are met and not jeopardizing future generations. In this context, the religious engagement can have a significant role in the promotion of sustainable practices and the awareness about the importance of the environmental protection. Sometimes religions have a great link with nature, considering sacred and acknowledging the responsibility of human beings as the keepers of the environment. In the religious context, we can promote the promotion of ethical treasures, values that can talk about indigenous and local communities and the support to conservation and ecosystems. Through their spiritual practices, through their teachings and rituals, the religions, they have the position to influence positively the behavior towards the environment when promoting the valorization of nature and the environmental responsibility. The religious communities can have a fundamental role in the awareness about the environmental issues and in promoting a lifestyle that is sustainable. Besides that, our world depends on the union of all peoples and religions for concrete initiatives with programs that are based in the ethic values, projects for taking care of nature, led by religious groups and interreligious partnerships to promote sustainability. The collaboration between can be an example for the impact of these initiatives, showing a respect for the environment. But it's important to recognize that not all the religious approaches have a progressist environmental approach. So the international dialogue, I'm sorry, the interreligious dialogue is the collaboration among different religious communities are essential to promote a common vision of respect for nature and engagement in sustainable practices. It insists in the context of environment and sustainable development. It can have a significant role in promoting environmental awareness in defending the rights, local communities, and implementation of sustainable practices as a model when recognizing the potential of the religions as allies in protecting the environment. We can work together to promote a sustainable future for everyone. Thank you very much.
Obrigada, Thaisa. Thaisa não
Thank you,
falou,
Thaisa.
tá cursando
She
então
did not say, but she's on the
e
8th
desde
grade.
pequena, como disse o professor,
And since the beginning,
né, tá sendo
since
ativista,
uh,
defende o meio ambiente.
since being unborn, she's an activist. She's defending the environment, and her father inspires her
Protocolo
and is always with her. We're gonna break protocol a little bit, and we're gonna invite Mr. Francisco.
uma palavra aqui, ele pediu para que ele tivesse esse momento. Cadê o seu Francisco? Pode vir.
And he asked to have a moment. Please come here.
E ele vai contar um pouco do relato.
He's gonna
Vai participar
tell a little
Pode
bit.
ficar aqui, ó.
He wanted to participate.
Pronto, perfeito. Obrigado, seu Ney, por estar convidando.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me.
Parentes, boa tarde, família.
Good afternoon, friends and family, religious family.
Uruma.
I am Francisco Muruma. I'm the father of Thaisa Silva, 13.
Já me apresentou aqui que
She
Thaisa sempre fez parte desse ativismo.
has told already that she's always part of this activism.
Povos de trabalhadores da roça.
We were always people that worked on the country farm.
Muitos dos alimentos
And this is where we build a lot of the food that you ate. Who likes açaí
tapioca, peixe.
with flour, tapioca, fish?
Tá. Quebrando pouco desse protocolo, o porquê
Breaking a bit of this protocol, this is why I'm here with Thaisa,
assim como vocês
saying that just like you are facing the climate change on the urban zones,
casas alagando,
homes being flooded,
pro fundo, né, da água,
peripheries going underwater.
as nossas plantações lá na roça.
We suffered with our plantations,
Seca, falta de água, falta de sistema.
lack of system.
Nós fazemos parte de projeto chamado Aldeia é Modelo.
We are part of the model
Thaisa bem
tribe
o texto que
where Thaisa said,
o futuro da humanidade, que é preservar sempre cada passo a passo.
we have to preserve step by step of its life,
Nossas partes
like just the religious life, our spiritual parts, just like the animals,
e sem a polinização
just like the spirits.
e nós cuidamos
And without pollinization, there's no fruit.
das abelhas melípona que lá
We take care of the bees, the melipone bees that
destrói toda esse nosso
help our fruits.
regiões, as nossas plantas que vêm para
Then we have the great açaí, the plants that you go buy.
tivemos
If we don't care for the country, if we don't have a sustainable project
essa sustentabilidade.
where everybody is trying to look for this sustainability,
Digamos que vocês que estão aqui,
if we cannot make
se não for
you looking for this proposal, if we cannot make this right,
e passar,
we are going to suffer and we're gonna starve.
é que vem a nossa
Because from the farmlands is where our
nossos peixes, a nossa
feeding comes.
o nosso açaí. Pode ter bastante açaí lá na região tal.
We're gonna have a lot of açaí.
Chega lá. Não chega aqui em Manaus.
If the
Se não
boat doesn't reach there, we're not going to be able to go to Manaus. If we cannot transport production to bring potable water, how can you drink açaí? You won't. And then we think, how can we have a project of a sustainable model to take this to the riverside communities and churches and religions as we are here today? How can we do sustainability without valuing the bioeconomy where our sustainability is? What model is that? What model do we want? From the river, 47 kilometers from Manaus, and the metropolitan area, we have the city of Capuru. We always suffer there and we face that. We have a lack of water. We want to irrigate our plants. So we have a model of capturing water to water the plants so we can have our sustainable means. Thinking of consumption. We don't even think of the transport and moving it outside, but we're thinking of our food independence. And then we think of how are we looking for a sustainable project and then transporting and moving it outside of our land. The biggest difficulty of having a sustainable project in the production area and consumption, seeing that 10 to 15 years, we're going to suffer more. The energy has to change. How can we do that? This is expensive. We can find a project, a construction of a project of 50,000, and then we have the semi-organic fish. You plant beans, potatoes, and other plants for the fish to feed, because even to find feeding for the fish is expensive. So how can we make this sustainable project to be, in fact, sustainable? We need to see this as a way for the future. It is tough to see today our relatives to be engaged on sustainable projects. Difficult. We're trying to have studies for the environment, for sustainability. So as the leader of my community, I'm here in front of you, looking for this proposal, asking universities, because you're pointing the problem. Okay, cool, fantastic. Media will show the problem. And who is going to solve it? Who is going to solve our problem if we cannot write our projects? Where are we going to capture resources with a sustainable return? This would be the best. Uniting as religions, as beliefs with our ancestors. All this spiritual conjunction. And with our relatives, and with the parts of peoples and institutions, we're going to bridge this. We have this anxiety of trying to promote things sustainably, and this exchange of experience. The entire world is undergoing climate action. Thank you.
Obrigado, seu Francisco. Muito obrigado pelas palavras.
Thank you, Francisco, for your kind words.
Para perguntas e respostas.
I will open for Q&A
A gente vai passar de novo
if you have it.
nossas convidadas. Só queria deixar registrado esse trabalho, essa atuação da visão mundial.
I just want to register the actuation of the worldview. She said she saw some activities from Manacapuru. Visão Mundial, the worldview, has worked with humanitarian help, with climate change, with COVID-19, acting, protecting children and youth. We have a big team of World Vision International in Rio Grande do Sul, taking blankets, food, installing support points for children and youth, and promoting this space that is so important to finish the violence against children, and always in a sustainable way. Searching for this tomorrow. Thinking about 10 years from now, it's going to be worse. We have to plan and execute the actions, thinking about the future, but thinking about quality of life. And for the next generations, not just for us, for children and youth. Now, this is space I would like to open for you. If you have any questions, if you have any observations. We have a professor here with us, Socorro Chaves, Mesquita, Pataissa. Please feel free. And we have to fight for açaí, with or without sugar and with or without flour. I like it without sugar. Thank you, Professor. Perfect. Microphone, please. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Macacoeira. Yosemai, thank you for this event. I'm Ismael Oliveira. I come from far. I come from the Terra Nostra, 170 kilometers of Manaus. We are with over 3,000 friends. And I want to say something mentioned by a lot of my friends. A lot of times, us settlers are being pushed away. We're talking about the environment. We're talking about sustainability, but objectively, we don't know where our country is coming. We don't have any planning. We don't have any direction. We're talking about this in this delicate moment that everywhere is undergoing. But we don't have an emergency plan for our state. We talk about carbon credits, sustainability. And I was impressed. We had so many gringos. We did not have people from the Amazon. And this event that happened here. And the big challenge is that we cannot have investments. The investments that we can do are the ones for companies, structures, institutions. For the small community in agriculture, we don't have it. The Brazilian state, and especially the state of the Amazon, doesn't have a plan of zoning in the state of Amazon. I'm a rural producer, but I have a case that is not validated. We are invalidated, and I cannot have access to carbon credits. There's a lot of money placed for the environment, for sustainability, for the state of the Amazon. But sorry, for being so honest. For the carbon plan, it is interesting. Our friend from the agriculture say, why am I going to preserve? They have destroyed their forest. Why are we going to preserve if I don't get any compensation? So to preserve the Amazon and prevent farmers from polluting, we need to have a plan for compensation of those workers. The plan of reusing carbon recently, it was a value of 400 reais per ton. I have 30 hectares available, contemplated. I don't have this territory validated, so I cannot participate. If I had, I could. 30 tons, uh, it would be 12,000 reais per year. 30 tons for 400, 12,000. It's better to tear down, if I tear down the trees and plant many oak, I can make much more than those 12,000 a year. So we have to have compensation so they don't cut down trees. What we want to say is that every day our friends, the people from the Amazon, we are being pushed towards environmental damage. Irregular occupations due to the lack of planning for a living. People are going to the occupations, they're burning down places, deforesting. Same thing in the rural area. They are committing crimes in the rural area because there's not a plan of land reform to send them to a settled land that is regular. Same thing, the agriculture still commits environmental crime when there isn't a project of mechanization of its lands. Every year he will burn again as a way to have a preparation of the land. So, friends, I will try to be objective. I'm very happy for the opportunity of being here. In other opportunities, we can also talk about family agriculture in our state. Good afternoon, everyone. Professor Francisco. I will now do a provocation. It doesn't have, well, it has to do with the team, but it doesn't. With your device. It has to do with what we are living, discussing since Monday and what we are living throughout our activism. It got me when about 40 years ago, 44 years ago, when I had my first undergraduate course, philosophy. And in my first philosophy class, Introduction to Philosophy, I had an atheist professor, and in the opening, he said, if you came here believing in God, you need to know that God has died. I am very convinced Christian Catholic. This was a big impact, but I kept going. And my provocation is for this event, but for others as well. Somebody thought they were so intelligent, so wise, that said that religion was opium of people. Somebody thought they were so intelligent, so wise that God was dead. Science and positivist science has said they could solve all problems of humanity, and that man did not believe God, that they have the reason. And this meaning,
ou eu sou muito ingênuo, ou eu estou
you
começando
can
a
see, and I may be very naive, but I'm seeing some turning points.
as religiões, todas as tradições religiosas e
All religions, all traditions, all philosophies of life are being invited
estarem no que elas podem
to manifest on what they can collaborate,
contribuir
how they can contribute
à vida
to recover
sadia de uma
uh, the healthy life of a planet,
toda uma humanidade, de todo
the healthy life of the humankind, the diversity of lives,
que de certa forma
that somehow science
humana
and human
de
reasoning
uma forma contribuíram muito para essa destruição e
somehow contributed for this destruction and are still contributing for this destruction.
o conhecimento religioso,
So that knowledge, that
aquele saber das manifestações
religious knowledge,
religiosas
that
que por muito
knowledge of religious manifestations
foi
that for a long time was discriminated,
como inútil
for a long time was considered useless,
humanidade,
that did not have a way of contributing for the community,
quando a
is
humanidade
now
encontra à beira de colapso.
uh, being connected as the new salvation, where the humanity is almost collapsing. We're not seeking for revenge. We're trying to prove
De todas as tradições religiosas,
that positively,
espiritualidades,
us from all
sim contribuir
movements of spirituality,
colaborar
we can contribute, we can collaborate
mutirão de esforço de
positively
planetas e de todas as espécies de vidas
in this big effort of protection of life and existing forms of life.
Boa tarde.
Good afternoon. I am Romana from Santa Catarina, and I'm a volunteer missionaire for government relationships for the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. And I'm a volunteer. It's been a learning experience, an important experience listening from you. And if possible, I would like to go deep, a little bit deeper about your view. I think professors have this knowledge through their living and their ways of actuation. Thais, Francisco, and the farmer that spoke, from your comprehension, because we know what we are doing outside the territories. We have results. We have to unlearn our ways of living. But for our comprehension, this is important. But what about in the territories? What is there? Is there in the villages, in the quilombos, this distancing of ways of dealing with the earth, ways of cultivating earth that won't make earth prosper versus the ones that will? People who are living in the Bay Area, as you mentioned, might be being pushed by a context. But what is your view? What's the scenario? We should understand what type of support, what type of public policies are needed so in these spaces, cultivating can help nature prosper. I don't know if my question is clear enough. It's for our understanding if this challenge exists and what is the size of it.
E pronto. Bom, obrigado pelas contribuições aí.
Thank you for your contributions. Do we have any other questions?
Vai para essa pergunta e eu vou passar
We're going to listen to the other question and I'm going to send
ok?
to the professors so they can answer.
Professora Maria,
My question is to Professor Maria.
referente
The social way of looking
ao ambiente,
regarding the human being, to the environment, to the religion.
porque a minha visão
How do you see it today?
30 anos
When I started 30 years ago,
é uma diferença muito
and now I have a big difference.
qual a sua opinião referente a essa mudança social
What is your opinion on this social change
religiosa
that impacts the religious part, the environmental part?
Perfeito. A professora Sila Mesquita vai.
The Professor Sila Mesquita will answer
Colega ali, tá bom?
on the question of our colleague.
Oi, agora sim.
Hello? Okay, now the mic is working.
Ismael, também é um prazer, companheiro.
Ismael, it is a great pleasure seeing you again,
Continua na luta e continua
knowing you are still fighting and resisting.
de crédito de carbono.
This carbon credit themes is a huge discussion. We might have another space to debate that.
É importante a sua colocação, né?
Your
Você trazer como
words are important
como
as an agriculturer, as a defender of the environment, but at the same time,
a preservação e a conservação
you are ensuring preservation and conservation, and this must be worked
de Estado na política
on the federal and state sphere.
federal vai vir para a roda.
We're gonna have another moment that this time will come.
Me remete quando eu comecei a estudar teologia,
What the professor said when I started studying theology, there was a professor of Christology.
e falou assim:
He came to the room and he said, "Who
Jesus multiplicou
said that Jesus multiplied bread?"
a dos pães. Aí todo mundo ficou assim.
And everybody was,
Tinha 45 pessoas na sala.
wow, 45 people.
E ele repetiu de novo.
A huge silence.
Que Jesus
And
multiplicou.
he said it again. Who said Jesus multiplied
Olhou pra cara do
bread?
outro, uns 10 desistiram.
A lot of people were looking at each other.
E depois ele fez uma
About 10 people gave up.
Quem foi que já morreu e voltou e disse
And
que
he said, "Who died and came back and believes in resurrection now?"
depois, com o tempo, né?
Afterwards, we kept
Aí fomos
strong
estudar, né, as manifestações
and we went to study manifestations, the symbology of the moments.
E eu acho que nos une aqui nesse
And
encontro
what
religioso
unites us on this
exatamente
interfaith
esse
forum
diálogo,
is this dialogue,
essa construção de compreendermos a manifestação de Deus.
comprehending the
Essa
manifestation
manifestação,
of
muitas
God.
vezes, ela expressa
And this manifestation, many times,
por alguma
by
por algum
gestures, speeches,
muitas das vezes nós não percebemos.
a lot of times we don't
Mas
perceive it,
estamos começando a pensar
but we are starting to think
de
that
Gênesis,
this God from
ele
Genesis
nos convida
invites
a
us
repensar
to
essa
rethink
casa comum.
this common
E essa
house.
casa comum,
And this
ela
common house
trata desse diálogo
deals
religioso
with
que
this
nós
interfaith dialogue,
nós temos que
saying we must
nos abraçar
unite, we
e
must
nós temos que
hug each other, we must
nesse
think
futuro da humanidade,
on this future of
vai depender
humanity
do nosso gesto com a natureza.
that will depend
A
on the
mãe
way
natureza está
we
dizendo para
deal with
nós, você
nature.
precisa olhar para mim de uma forma diferente.
Mother
A
Nature
gente
is
precisa
saying we
perceber
must look at
que
each
eu
other
estou
differently.
gritando,
We
eu estou
must
gemendo.
understand I
Eu
am
preciso me olhar.
crying.
Eu estou aqui
You must
olhando.
look at me. I'm here
Talvez
and you are not looking at me.
a gente precisa, e aí é
We might
uma
need,
contribuição
and this is a
do G20
contribution
para
for
os países
G20, for the countries,
nós estamos
the
falando da
biggest 20
COP,
countries.
estamos falando da
We're
COP,
talking about
vai ser a COP
COP30
que
that
nós vamos
will
viver,
be
vai ser uma das melhores COPs.
one of the
Nós
best
precisamos
COPs.
decidir antes
We
que o
must
tratado seja assinado. Que os
we must
196
act before the
países
treaty is signed
discutindo
because
a COP
196 countries are discussing
em Belém do
not
Pará.
COP29 this year,
Mães,
COP30 in Belém do
nós,
Pará
como
next
sociedade
year.
civil,
And as
como
civil
irmãos,
society,
como
as
irmãs, como
siblings,
igreja, como
church,
comunidade, pensar
community,
como que nós
to
vamos
think
dialogar com
of
esse
how
outro
we are
em
going to
silêncio e aguardando
dialogue
que o documento seja assinado. Porque vimos que os
with the
acordos,
government
os
before
tratados,
treaty is signed.
e outros
See
tratados
the Paris
também,
Agreement and
não
others
reduziu a emissão
have not
de
reduced
gases de efeito estufa.
the greenhouse
Ao contrário,
gases.
nós estamos pensando
On the
em
opposite,
1,5 hoje nós já
we were
estamos
thinking 1.5,
em 2 anos atrás nós já chegamos. Hoje estamos falando de
and
2,5.
it's been 2 years ago we reached it.
O
Now we're
aquecimento
talking
global que
about
nós estamos sentindo
2.5.
é no nosso dia a dia.
The global warming is here. We're feeling it on our daily lives. And Romana, when she asks that question, Romana, the traditional communities, indigenous communities, they are playing their social environmental part. If it wasn't for the indigenous peoples and traditional communities, deforestation would be much worse. But what do we have as experience? We need territories to be defined. Land demarcation must be fulfilled. The realization that Ismail said about land settlers must be done. And we need to have big projects, just as exploration of mining, gas, potassium. This all must be forbidden because this is destroying nature. This is destroying life. This is strengthening the communities that have a fundamental role, that have had this role for thousands of years. We are breathing because indigenous people and traditional communities exist. And they don't have to pay for that with their own life. Mercury, the Munduruku people are being killed by contamination of mercury. We have to say to the government that they have to have social environmental responsibility with the communities. And then our part is being done. And their part needs to be done as well, because communities are still preserving, managing, being careful about the forestry exploration, the waters, that's it. We need that. And to wrap it up, I'm going to say we have a shirt. The Amazonizar network, and from GTA, we're saying, let's Amazon the world, respecting, constructing, dialoguing. The shirt reads Amazon free of oil.
Parabéns, obrigado, Sila. Agora a professora Socorro.
Congratulations. Thank you, Sila. Now, Professor Socorro. They gave us several challenges. We are going to mention some things. The planning, when I started studying the public policies, I thought that everything was very disorganized. Today, I see that what's lacking is for us to be able to identify what are the people who are committed so that we can elect them and make them our voices as congressmen, because we elected a president who is related to our proposals because of his life story, but we have a Congress that is contrary in all his positions. So it's hard. Every time that we have planning of politics were made by the dominant policies. And it's not gonna be, we want more than 20 million in the region. We have historical comprovation of that. And the biggest refugee, and they are just a little, they're a small fraction. So I believe that this extermination, the killing of the culture, the physical death of these people is a result of the planning of the elites to keep themselves in the power. We need to try to have a planet that is democratic, participant, that we should have active voice. And what happens is it's important, and I thank a lot for the opportunity of being here, because I think it's necessary to require from science a repositioning, because what happens is we have many people who misunderstand Karl Marx. I had a master's degree and I had a professor from the Frankfurt University, and I spent 3 years. I'm not bragging about myself, okay? I'm just telling you this just to say what I'm gonna say. When we were interpreting that the religion is the opium of the people and we have the German ideology, we see, well, he shows that the religion is the opium of the people when it helps in the domination of people, when it helps to spread misunderstood information, not to have the well-being of the people. And we see that in many places. Many leaders are doing exactly that. They're dragging the people so that they are numb and don't realize this reality. So this is current in this sense. And his theory is based on the Hegel theory. Do you know where Hegel removed his theory? He interpreted, it was an interpretation from the Bible. It was in a Bible where he had all the theses. The thesis is the man with God, and the antithesis is the separation of the man from sin. And the new thesis that he says that when the man reunites with God, isn't these the religions are talking about? And Christianism, like Western Christianism, I believe that we are reading the Bible again, that we were put here to dominate nature, to get from it, but actually the word is cultivate, is take care, and we gotta learn that. And the environmental issue, the care with nature, if we have a belief, we realize that we have the responsibility of taking care of the creation that was put here for our well-being, not destroying it. So this speech is showing in the German ideology, Hegel left many disciples. Some would defend that religion was for domination and others for emancipation. And Marx says, well, they understood nothing. And something else about university and religion. I teach some master and doctorate degrees. I initiate showing the concept of nature and environment. I show that there are several types of interpretation. We have the creation and we have science. And I say, well, faith is unquestionable. It has an absolute concept, but science, what we produce, is partial, is limited. It's a vision because science changes. And there are researches from last century inside the universities. 42% of the technical people from university, over 40% is they are Christians. It's a very high level. It's almost 50% of the population. And if we consider the people who actually attend church, who are leaders or who are committed members, we will see that it's a smaller number than what we have been seeing in universities. The pastor, I was part of the church for over 30 years in the Presbyterian church, and the pastor was converted inside the university when he was going to study history, and he was part of the, I don't know what you call it. There is a biblical study inside the university. I don't know, I forgot the name, but it's really important here in the region. So I think that sometimes uh, we deserve criticism. We gotta be by the small producers because agribusiness won't make progress. Capital has making progress since the first revolutionary industrial revolution. We need to change this model. Science has to be committed. We gotta have this strength from you, requiring that from us. We need this mobilization from society to charge us that, because when I say social technology, I'm talking about not thinking that we are the goddess and god and goddesses of the Olympians, and we can produce technologies
os princípios religiosos e aí associa com as técnicas que a gente
where we
conseguiu.
respect religious principles and we can have points of view from the interpretation of nature. That will make the difference, and that will be the plot twist. And something I would like to put with you, we have been having contamination in our region. It's grief. We gotta discuss that. And something that is really important, it's the drought. Last year, I was having a research. I was with my team in the communities, and I saw communities who never imagined they would live by the Solimões Amazonas River, the biggest river in volume of water. And it was going to be without water. So I was in a region in Manaus, and the community doesn't have access because they should have water, treated water. They use water from the river. So they don't have a well. It's really expensive to have that. It's a need of public policy. This community isn't done because it's not possible to do that. Either they work on a well and they came to the city. They are living in a poor condition and they have no condition to live there. We spent 3 months without being able to go there. We just could go back there in the beginning of this year because the drought was so violent. And what hurts us the most, and my students were super impacted, all of us, but we are tougher, right? after we're closer to 7 years old, we're tougher. But girls like she, girls who are teenagers, we arrived there in a community and people were really sad. All the community, several communities, because all the kids were born. We had no way to give the vaccine. When the child was born in 7 days, the kid died. The infant died. The community was sad, and that happened in November. We arrived in January there, and they were still crying. And we had to cry with them because we could not control ourselves before the tragedy that was the death of this child. I think we should report that because the climate changes. If we don't make stronger decisions in these forums that we have the possibility to attend, and Sila was mentioning that, this reality is only going to get worse. And the worst is that we always mention, well, it's not going to affect everyone. Well, it's going to affect way more those who are vulnerable socially. Environment, there is the environmental racism. The city is well divided, the best areas for those who are rich and the worst area for the poor. So black people, poor people, the workers, those are the ones who suffer more. Thank you, professors. Unfortunately, we won't be able to have more time for better debate. These are very important and relevant conversations. We are over the time now. I'm gonna give 2 minutes for your final considerations, okay? And we're gonna finish this panel. We're gonna start with the professor, then Sila, then Thais. We always have the sensation that we didn't talk about uh, everything. I thank for this opportunity. I want to make available everything we have produced. I showed just a couple of booklets, but we have books, many things, and we want to socialize a lot. We have many partners. We never did anything wrong. We have a huge team who's with us. I want to greet through this leadership, this religious leadership that I liked a lot. I liked everybody, but I want to tell you that we always learn more. And it's good to know that we are in some places with me. May God bless us in this journey. Thank you. Sila, I want to thank this space for construction, this space for dialogue, this space for unity, for realizing that we need to strengthen ourselves looking for Mother Nature. I want to say that we from the Trabalho Amazônico, we are going to COP30. We are mobilizing the organizations in Amazon. We are part of the Amazon Collective towards COP30. It's a space for political incidents in this agenda of mitigation, of debate, in the process of forming what we gotta keep doing by training, by teaching. We're also coordinating the members for COP30, this space, this event that is going to happen in Brazil. How we're going to be part of this process since last year in the Amazonian dialogue in the gathering that happened in Belém, in the president of Amazonica, we started building this space with several organizations from Amazonia, Brazil, and we will expand internationally that we may be this collective of discussion and proposition to work before, during, and after the COP. So we invite you, we're in this process. It's a long process of construction of debate, and here we make ourselves available to build this path. I think working together and building together is the salvation and the solution for our lives.
Perfeito, obrigado, Sila, Thaisa.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Thaisa. Once again, I thank for the opportunity to express myself in events like this. Thank all of you who heard me. And we will be around if you have questions. My father and I, we can talk a little and exchange knowledge. Thank you.
Perfeito. Obrigado, Thaisa.
Perfect. Thank you, Thaisa. I want to thank in behalf of the Visão Mundial, the organizers of the event, the panelists, those who contributed. I want to thank our peers here, everybody who contributed. And this is the feeling, Professor, that we're not done with the subject. We didn't answer all the questions as much as we would like, right? We want to thank everyone. Thank you on behalf of the World Vision. And I want to let you at ease. So be our guests to go to the social media, check the booklets and all the work that is done. We will be around, and if you want to talk to us for some questions, we will be around. So we are going to close our panel right now. I just would like to say something really quickly. We would like to thank Wellington Pereira da Silva from the Visão Mundial. And immediately I invite all of you to go up for our coffee break, 10 minutes, because there is a deadline for us to finish the coffee break. So immediately go up and then you keep talking up there, please.